God. Oh, God, I need to know. I told y'all it's going to get hot. It's going to get hot. And it's very dangerous when you get stuck in a loop. Because one of the things that takes place when people are stuck in a loop, we call them sketches. We call them sketches. And when I do my School of the Prophets, we call something a sketch. And you can always tell someone's sketch because they will keep on talking about something. And you said, I heard you talk about it before, but you keep on bringing it back up because they're stuck in a sketch. They keep on saying the same thing. It's a sketch. It's a loop. In spirituality, we call ghost. If someone is a disembodied spirit and they are a ghost, or if a house is haunted, it represents that the etheric part of the person or the spiritual soulish part of them is stuck in a loop. They do not realize that they're dead. And so what they do is that they keep on reliving the experience right before they pass because they are stuck in a loop. They do not understand that they have to let go of the body. This is why in certain spiritual practices, they would burn the body, or they would take the body and burn it so that the soul would be able to move on and it will stop linking itself to the physical body. Oh. So there's something called a sketch. A sketch, a loop. I ministered to a man that didn't know me, and I looked at him and I said, you died and they resuscitated you. He looked at me and says, how did you know this? I said, well, don't worry about how. Just listen to what I'm saying to you. I said, when you died, you went into what is known as the underworld or the dream world. And I said, you were in the place known as the fire. And I'm going to explain this. And this is why hell is known as a place burning with torment or fire. It doesn't mean that it is literally a place that has fire. These are images to describe something that takes place in Kamaloka. Kamaloka is seen, or it is known as the phase of the moon. And this is why we will see different things of the werewolf turning into the werewolf or turning into the wolf or the beast when there is a full moon, Dracula coming out in the full moon. All of this is iconography of talking about the underworld, or what is known as Hades, Gehenna, which was the place that is described where they would burn trash and garbage, or what is known in spiritual esoteric arts, where I do a teaching on this, and this is going to probably be some of my deep teaching that I get into with the Institute when we're building the School of Prophets, what is known as Kamaloka. Now, the reason why it is known as a place burning with fire is because the imagery is not that there are real flames there that are burning people. The imagery is that there are people that still have what is known as physical desires, that they are literally burning up inside out with physical desires that they are unable to quench. So the imagery of this, Frank, is seen with someone that is sitting in a place burning with fires and they cannot get water or anything to fulfill the quench. Because when we cross over in the other side, we have to break the loop that took place with the physical body to understand that we are no longer physical, we are spiritual. And this is why I teach people, and I teach the prophets, and I go deeper in some of my teachings at the School of the Prophets. Make sure y'all come to the next year's School of the Prophets, Alchemy, because this is very powerful. This is why I teach people that the conscious, you have to be able to become conscious aware in the dream state. And if you are not remembering your dreams when you go to sleep, that can be a sign of repression or the lack of expression, and also an archetype that you are not aware of where your consciousness is becoming unlocalized at. So it is important that you remember it. Now, when we are children and babies, we spend more time in the dream realm. We're very conscious in the dream realm. You can actually see it. I never forget, I was prophesying to a woman, and I said, oh, my God, I said, I see the baby right now. She said, what are you talking about? I said, they're in the spirit realm. I can see them. They're playing and laughing and talking. She says, what are you talking about? I said, there's a baby around you. She said, I'm not pregnant. 2 weeks later, she finds out she's pregnant. The baby was around her. Another woman I ministered to in Palm Beach, I told her, I said that you had a miscarriage. I said, you had a miscarriage because the first time you got afraid and the womb did not hold it, so the baby went back up. And I said, the same one came back down. And I said, as a sign, he has a birthmark because you lost that child, and it was the same child that came back down. She looked at me, broke down crying. She says, my child told me, Mommy, when I was first coming in your stomach, she said, the first time you got scared, so I went back up, and then I came back down. And the mother said, how did you come down? She said, I went through your head, and I ended up coming in your body. Now, this is a child saying this that's about 5 or 6 years old, doesn't understand this. And I get into the whole thing about when a woman is getting pregnant. It's very spiritual because it comes down from the head. That soul comes down into the head and incarnates in the woman's womb. Now, let me go back to this now. So when we talk about hell, it is not a literal place like burning with fire. They use the word Gehenna or Hades. This has come from the Greek, which represents a place that is burning with fire. But what it represents is that there is a place which is known as Kamaloka, and it is connected to the sphere of the moon. Can y'all working with me? It's connected with the sphere of the moon. And this is why the moon, or what is known as the full moon, is associated so much with witchcraft and the dark arts and the dark things, because it is when there is a full moon that the veil gets thinner from the unseen realm or the seen realm. And there are souls that get stuck there because they do not remember the Christ within them. So this is what salvation is. Salvation is not just confessing him. It is awakening Christ within you. Have you not received the Holy Spirit? Have you not awakened the Christ within you? So when we get into understanding what hell is, hell represents being stuck in a loop where you are still seeking to fulfill physical desires but do not have a body and is unaware that you have a body. And so this is why sometimes people will describe, or people that will visit hell or visit these lower dimensions will describe people doing weird and bizarre things because they're trying to feel physical, but they do not understand that they no longer have a physical body. They are supposed to be spiritualizing, so they get stuck in a loop and they get stuck in a sketch. Some of the things that someone would see when they're in the dimension of Kamaloka, or what is known in the classical Christianity as hell, is that you'll see people cutting themselves. Now, they're not feeling anything when they're cutting themselves because they do not have a physical body, but they're doing that because they're wishing to feel physical. So out of their torment, the soul becomes tormented because it does not understand that it no longer is physical. Now, this is a sign of being stuck in a loop. Now, we all do pass through Kamaloka, but there are some people that get stuck there. We pass through it. And as we pass through there, we do something very interesting that is similar to what happens with Christ. We all pass through a form of hell. Some of us are passing through it in the physical dimension, okay? You went through trauma, you went through pain, you went through torment. That doesn't mean you have to go through it spiritually, but we all pass through hell. We all deal with hell. Hell on earth. People being nasty, people treating you crazy, people looking at you crazy, people doing things. We all deal with it. But there are some souls that get caught up in it and they get a sketch. And what makes them get caught up in it is that there's an experience that they're tied to that they do not forgive. And this is why the last words that Jesus does when he's on Calvary is that he has to break from the loop of the cross to resurrect. He understands that the body must be dismembered. And so he did not die on the whipping post, but on the cross, when they nailed his body there and they started to dismember it. Most people don't know this, but in the Roman culture, when they would crucify the person, the final thing that they would do, it's not really in detail, but it was understood, is that they would take the legs and they would break the legs. Ooh, Jesus, y'all not hearing me teach about this. Yeah, they pierced him in the side. They put the crown of thorns on him. Yes, they whipped his back until his interval and his intestines were hanging out. But then they do something else. They start breaking the bone. And the one thing that they break is that they break the femur bone that connects down into the kneecap. They break it. And some people would say that Jesus, this was during the time that as they were doing that, they do that. And that is the final breaking that takes place. And then they would let the body sit there for everybody to see. And when they did this, that there are some theologians or some people that would say that during this process, this was the time that Jesus says, forgive them, for they know not. This is the Christ disassociating himself from the trauma of the experience. He understands that he has to forgive them, not forget them, but to forgive them, for they know not. He is dismembering the experience so that he can begin to resurrect and remember the holy, divine experience. Now, when we understand this, we have to do something known as prophetic editing to dismember. Some people are listening and they're saying, well, Prophet, how do you dismember from the experience? We do something known as prophetic editing. And prophetic editing is a practice that we go backwards. And the way how we started is that we start to go backwards in our day. Now, when the older prophets would teach this technique, what they would do is that every night when you go to bed, you would go backwards from your dead. So, Dave, right before you got into bed, you will begin to start imagining yourself going backwards. So right before you went to your bed, what did you do? You went and washed your face. So you begin to re-experience that. Then you begin to brush your teeth. You re-imagine that. You re-experience that. And you want to get good at building this type of conscious awareness. Now, someone might be saying, wow. And if you try it, when you try it the first time, it's very difficult. But anything that you're not able to remember, because there's a time, and people who are, the older prophets and people that really get deep into spiritual work, they have to learn how to do this. Anything that is a gap that you don't remember, for example, you don't remember what you were doing at a particular time, and then after you brush your teeth, you don't remember the show that you watched, you don't remember you on the phone talking to your friend. There's certain things that will have a gap in time. What that means is that you were not present. That means that you were functioning unconsciously. Very dangerous. You were not functioning consciously, you were more unconscious. So you can tell the moments during your day that you were unconscious because you don't remember it. There's a aspect of being disassociated, so you want to strengthen yourself becoming more conscious. And the reason why this is important of becoming more conscious of the unconscious, because there are things that get lodged in our spirit man that we do not, or we are not aware of because we're unconscious of it. Okay? The story is told of a prophet. He was meditating, and one of the husband of one of the students that this woman was studying, the husband bulges into the temple where they're praying and meditating. He is a Christian monk. They're in a monastery. They're Christian monks, and they're in the monastery and they're meditating, and they're doing their holy mantras. While they're meditating, the husband of one of the particular ladies that was there comes into the room and basically just flips out, curses him out, and spits on the prophet. Some of the disciples and some of the people that were the students, they were ready to, really, push this man out and get physical. And the prophet says, no, it's fine. And the guy cursed him out, and he left the room. About 2-3 days later, the guy gets convicted. He gets convicted. He gets convicted for two reasons, because number one, he's trying to get a response from this holy man, and he doesn't get a response. It's not satisfying. Sometimes the enemy will bring things in your life just to trigger you. And you have to know when there's something that is trying to trigger you and how to ignore it. We don't give it any attention. The prophet sat there and stayed in his meditative position and smiled as the man spit on him. This is a man that really exuded what is known as the fruit of the Spirit. Exuded the fruit of the Spirit. Because I'm telling y'all right now, somebody come and spit on me, there's going to be some issues. I'm being funny, but I'm being serious too. But this holy man exuded a level of the fruit of the Spirit that was the Christ. Christ is forgiving. Christ is loving. And so the man got convicted, and he comes back into the temple to apologize to this holy man. And while he's apologizing to the holy man, the prophet looks at him and says, I don't know what you're talking about. And his students and his disciples are trying to remind him